And welcome back to Culture Crossroads. We are joined this segment by economics instructor, author, television personality, Geeta Chopra. Geeta, it's good to see you again. Welcome back to the program.
Thank you for having me, Andrew. It's a pleasure to be here today.
So we're going to dig into a little bit more economics here because obviously we have a new administration coming in. We're seeing all kinds of cabinet picks and so on and so forth. We're also hearing rumors of tariffs galore. And you have one side of the aisle that says this is going to destroy the American economy. On the other hand, from what we learned from Donald Trump last time, he uses those tariffs as not only an economic policy, but also part of his foreign policy as well. And now we have some with Canada. Of course, the Prime Minister, Justin Trudeau, recently went down to Florida to visit Donald Trump. And certainly the tariffs, I'm sure, were among the topics of conversation there. So, Geeta, as we get started here, let's start with the tariffs in Canada. Can you explain what the situation is and what the potential impacts could be?
Yes, and thank you for opening with that question. First of all, congratulations on the great victory of November. And we're all hoping for the best, obviously. And to come into tariffs, really, it's not to be taken personally, right? We're slapping tariffs on Canadian imports, but it goes back to MAGA, Make America Great Again. What does that really mean? It has nothing to do with pride or emotion, but it means to bring manufacturing back home to the shore, right? Onshore manufacturing, development plants, everything from automobile to any type of manufacturing plant, which has been lost abroad. And it's not just to China, it is to other countries like Canada and Mexico who might have different labor or standards. So when we say we're putting tariffs on other countries, it's just to help the domestic production. So basically, in the long run, it'll lower prices here because it'll encourage people to compete more on American soil. And when we have more competition, we have cheaper prices, consumers will spend more. So that kind of boosts domestic demand. So it's really an economic answer, but the short answer is we're trying to bring production or increase production at home. And in order to do that, we have to stop production from coming in from outside.
So explain then, so for those maybe, we just read tariff in the newspaper on the headline or newspaper. Oh my gosh, how old am I? It'll come through our news feed or what have you. And we're headline readers, but that's about it. And not everybody is as plugged in as you or as I am in terms of reading getting all the reports and all that kind of thing. Explain how a tariff would what's the word I'm looking for? Explain how a tariff would limit the foreign production and hopefully boost American domestic production.
Yeah, another great question. So if you think about it, how does it boost for domestic production? If something has a tariff on it, well, now the producer who is importing it or exporting it to the United States has to pay a fee. And when they have to pay a fee, they in turn raise the price. So the price of that product goes up. And for the end user who is a consumer, they see that price and they say, oh, wow, that one's expensive. Is there a cheaper option? Oh, look, there is. But it's made in the United States. So consumers typically don't care where the product is made. I care a great deal. I'm a patriot, and I'm sure so are you, and so are many. But the average person is motivated by price, by their pocketbook. So when they see the cheaper version, say, oh, wow, okay, it's made in China, buy it. Oh, wow, it's made in the US, buy it. They're not looking for where it's bought. So basically, if you start putting tariffs on foreign products, those prices of those products will go up, and people will look for a cheaper option, which will be at home, who doesn't have a tariff.
Now, isn't part of this equation, though, a lot of the regulations for just operating a business in America? We've become a very business unfriendly country, as it were. I mean, there's so many hoops and hurdles. There's so many fees and this fee and that fee, and not to mention the climate agenda, all over major corporations and many industries. And it makes manufacturing in America almost impossible, especially for the smaller companies or startups. Doesn't deregulation have to take place at the same time?
Well, it is. And that's the beauty of what's happening, Andrew. I couldn't be happier. I was celebrating in November, and I'll just tell you that Donald Trump is going to deregulate some of the industries. He's going to cut back taxes on businesses, that's small businesses. He's going to interest rates will get lowered, I believe, through the Feds, which is kind of in sync with his vision for the economy, which will then free up capital, make money cheaper. When money's cheap, you can start new companies, and that will create more jobs. But yes, deregulation. Look, Donald Trump was never for regulation. He's always complained about, the left regulating companies out of business, and I quote him during the 2020 debates. And that's just the flagship of the Republican Party in general. That's right-wing economic policies. That's being fiscally conservative. We don't want to regulate these companies because then they can't breathe. I'm a small business owner, right? And I had a restaurant during the time Trump was the president in this great country. And it was great because we had freedom and flexibility to move, to expand, to get capital, but too many regulations, long lines at the county government, permits, which take 5 years to get. You can't move and you can't operate.
Do you think the GOP has enough spine now that once again, Trump's coming in with the trifecta, with the Senate and House control? This is a time, I believe, that the GOP needs to govern and use the power it's been given to make these things more permanent, so that, because Trump's not going to be elected in 28, he's termed out. There's no guarantee that over the next 4 years, with a constant drumbeat of Trump is Hitler, Trump is Hitler, Trump is Hitler, which they're going to do, whatever they're cooking up on the global stage to try to screw him with, and screw America with. I believe it's going to be difficult for a GOP to be elected in 28. Not that they can't, but there's going to be some significant challenges. We've got to make these things stick. Do you think that the GOP actually has the fortitude, the backbone to actually legislate and govern this time, as opposed to just having Trump do all this through executive action?
Yes, I do. And, one of the things I'm putting faith in is that Trump is a doer. He's not just a speaker. He's actually not a great speaker, which is good, because that makes him a doer, right? Usually people who speak a lot, like Obama, get nothing done, or, just send all these fancy words. But Trump is a doer, and he's a terrible speaker. But yes, coming back to your question, I think it's great that he has support from both houses. And like you said, it's a strong triangle. But it's not just any Republican president that we want. He's kind of a guy who's different. NATO hates him. He wants to dissolve NATO. He's going after the Ukraine war. He wants to end the wars. He's a businessman. He speaks out of turn. He wants to get rid of the deep state and the establishment. And says things that, others are just want to remain hidden and buried for centuries in this country. So I think with him there, with that kind of mindset and policy, platform in place, with the others supporting him, I think it's a recipe for success. I'm not saying it's perfect. He's by no means perfect. We all sin and fall short of the glory of God. By the grace of God, we've been redeemed. But I think that we have a lot of hope for the first time in a really long time.
I believe it was Milton Friedman who said this, the economist, the late great economist, Milton Friedman. I believe it was. He was interviewed, and he spoke of government spending, that all government spending is taxation in one way or another, because it either comes back around as inflation or, further devaluing of our dollar, which you and I have talked about on the show, and how our dollar has been devalued over decades. Much of Trump's economic agenda obviously is going to require government spending. Help us understand, how do we know when government spending is good and when government spending is not, besides the obvious, pet projects and pork projects and things like that? I think we all know, look, the government's going to have to spend some money. That's going to require some kind of reset for our dollar. But the way we're just blowing it out, blowing the doors open right now, that's not a recipe for long-term success. And we certainly don't want to continue that, even though, we have this new administration would like to see some restraint, but also some targeted spending that's actually effective at accomplishing these things, and not just saving us more inflation in the coming years.
Yeah, and it's remarkable how much money we've actually spent with this administration. So we're upwards of $30 trillion, just to put it in perspective, so Americans know. That's more than our GDP. Our GDP has not reached that level. So we're well above $30 trillion in debt. I'm not going to attribute it all to, the Bidens and the Obamas and the Clintons. But yes, Biden did spend a lot, and then he blamed the pandemic on it. But I think where Trump is coming from is kind of that biblical principle of cutting it out from the root, like solve your problem from the root. Don't take medicine to cover symptoms. So he's coming after that. He's trying to create energy independence for us. He's trying to combat inflation, bring back the value of the dollar, lower interest rates, increase domestic demand, consumer spending, aggregate demand. So, create jobs. But coming back to the debt, I mean, it's something that we do have to pay down, and he is going to incur more. Let's be realistic. We've made a big mess of it, Andrew. And the only way out is to spend some money, right? We have to spend money to solve problems. And money also makes money, right? If you're a business person, you understand that. You have to spend money to receive money. You have to invest. And the good news is he is an investor. He's frugal in that sense. He understands the concept of everything I just mentioned better than I probably do. But, we will have more debt. Let's just prepare for that. But I hope it's good debt. And what is good debt? It's debt that creates jobs. It's debt that cuts back, might lower taxes, right? Maybe we have less tax revenue and we might go into debt a little bit because of that. But if you manage your money well, in the long run, you should come out better. That's the good news. I have faith that he's going to be able to do that. But the not so good news is that he only has 4 years, and we don't know who's going to come in after that. But I'm hoping he can set a good foundation of creating programs that are self-sustainable, again, energy, jobs, and increased GDP, and kind of maintain a normal debt level where each American is not over in debt, so we can grow with, have sustainable growth and independent growth by not relying on countries like China. We need to spur domestic demand. And that's the whole heart and soul of MAGA, make it great again, by bringing back domestic production. I can't emphasize that enough.
Geeta, before we go, the last time you were on the program, I wanted to get to, because I know you have a couple of books that you've had out and some other pieces. I want to make sure today, last time we ran out of time, I don't want to do that this time. I want to make sure that you can talk a little bit about some of the books you have, some of the other work that you do, and let people know where they can find you and your books and other pieces.
Oh, sure. Thank you for that. I'm very humbled, Andrew. Really, my books are all on Amazon. I'm a Christian author. I talk about, I write books on biblical topics, but I also wrote a nice book on Donald Trump's economics policies. And, I dedicated a public letter to him, so you could find that on Amazon. My website is Life After Christ, where I talk a lot about my ministry, so you could find me there. We're launching a new mobile app, which is a Christian business directory, actually. And if you follow me on social media, you'll find out more. That's actually called Excellence. So you can look up Excellence Business Directory on Facebook and follow me there. So I'm pretty much everywhere.
Geeta Chopra, thank you for your time here on this segment. When we come back in Culture Crossroads, it's our faith focus segment. We continue in our brief history of Christmas, and this page of history is one that might surprise you. That's coming up next. Don't go away.